Hey everybody, it's Steve, and this is
Amanda.
we're here with Chancey today. Chancey, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Chancee Culp. I am Lucas's mom. He is 7 years old and diagnosed with attenuated poor NKH.
All right, so we were just chit chatting before we got started here, and this is a new experience for all of us. I mean, this is going to be a couple episodes in for us, but we're kind of working out some technicalities and trying to make sure everything looks good and sounds good. So um, yeah, so if it looks kind of weird at first, maybe I gotta fix it, but
We do a lot of Zoom calls together. We're just not used to doing recorded ones for everyone in the world can see them.
Yeah,
It'll be great.
yeah.
but tell us about Lucas, and then we'll kind of get into the questions if you want to.
Okay, great. Yeah. Um, so similar to Amanda's story, I had a really boring pregnancy. That's what my doctor liked to call it in my head. I thought that was great. I figured that would mean that I would have a boring life that I always dreamed of and, a regular kid, as much as I hate that term. But when Lucas came out, he didn't really cry. He kind of made one little crying sound. He was very, very lethargic, didn't really open his eyes or, want to eat at all. They assured me that he was just a sleepy baby, that it was taking him more time to acclimate. Same thing that they told you, Amanda, about Nora. And I was a first time mom. I didn't have any experience with this. So I was like, well, they must know. They see babies every day. Uh, about 24 hours after he was born, he kind of woke up and showed interest in feeding. And we attempted to feed him, and it lasted all of 5 minutes. And that was the last time I saw him open his eyes until he was treated with sodium benzoate. So, unlike Nora, unfortunately, we had a nurse in coupling care who recognized that something wasn't quite right. And even though Lucas had been cleared by two pediatricians, she thought that we needed a third opinion. And I definitely agreed because, as far as I knew, everything that I read, he was supposed to be crying and eating by now. And she called in a third opinion, and that pediatrician decided to send him to a special care nursery since our birthing hospital didn't have a traditional NICU. And the neonatologist in that special care nursery immediately noticed that his arm was kind of jerking rhythmically, whereas the pediatricians told us it was an immature nervous system. The neonatologist recognized it as seizure activity, and he got his first low dose of Keppra about just over 2 days old at this point. Um, we were told that there were two different NICUs that we could end up at. We were going to go to the hospital that had the bed open first. That happened to be St. Joseph's Hospital in Phoenix instead of Phoenix Children's. And there we just happened to have a neurologist who was a neurogeneticist. And he started recognizing the signs of metabolic disorders, ordered all of the proper tests, and um, right at 3 days old, we found out that he most likely had NKH. They let us know that they wouldn't be able to officially confirm it without genetic testing, but that all of the labs and everything that they could find were pointing to that. Um, we were told that we would have to go to the children's hospital in order for him to be treated with sodium benzoate. And within 20 minutes of hearing NKH for the first time, we were being sent down the street to Phoenix Children's, where he would be admitted to the NICU, have all new scans. Everything that he already had done at the first NICU had to be repeated, from lab work, spinal tap, MRI, ultrasound. Everything was redone. And they started sodium benzoate treatment. It took, I want to say, 2 full days of sodium benzoate treatment for him to open his eyes, and he did. So he was a little more stable, faster, than Nora. And I remember in your episode, you talked about, you wonder, all those days she went without being treated. And I really think a lot of Lucas's progress that he's made has to do with how fast he was treated.
Early
He
diagnosis.
got
Yeah.
Yeah, early diagnosis, and I mean, it's as far as I can tell, it's pretty unheard of for a kid with NKH to be diagnosed so quickly unless they have a sibling. And, Lucas doesn't. So I feel very, very fortunate that all of the right people were in the right place and, started teaching me about advocacy, because that's what nurses are really good at, is teaching us medical moms how to advocate for our kids. And, yeah, Lucas is very, very fortunate. His story, I call it a miracle because I don't know anyone else in the community so far who's had that same experience. It's often way more traumatic, way more similar to Amanda and Nora's journey with this diagnosis. So that's the biggest difference with Lucas, for sure. He's still obviously very affected by NKH. He is G-tube fed. He doesn't hold his head up. He can't walk or talk. At least he can't say words that, other people recognize, but I definitely know his language. So, yeah.
I find it interesting that the pediatric hospital redid everything. Is that pretty standard? Because we had a similar situation like that with Alex later on. And it's almost like, do they not trust all of their labs? Like, I get why they want to redo some things, but it's kind of frustrating. It's also like, we're redoing everything. We've already done this. Why don't you believe it?
Right. I never really got an answer on that. I'm sure you can appreciate that. But as far as I knew, yes, they wanted to confirm and redo everything. I think mostly because it is so rare.
Right.
And, similar to the geneticist that diagnosed Nora, our geneticist hadn't seen it in years. And the only patient she did see, died. I never confirmed if it was lack of treatment, like choosing not to treat with the sodium benzoate, or if it was just the child didn't respond. But yes, it was the only thing she'd ever seen, and so she let us know the same. He's most likely going to decline. You're most likely going to have to make a quality of life decision. All of those things that all of us get told in the beginning. He has the worst of the worst, and that was based on his labs, which now from years of research, we know that those initial labs don't determine severity.
Exactly.
They're not an indicator for how severe they're going to be, and we didn't know that at that time. So
And
it
that's
was
one thing that we're trying as a community to make sure we help correct that problem, because that is why a lot of families make the decisions they make in the hospital, because they're told that there's no hope. And you and I both, realized, no, we can fight this and our kids will show us what they can do. And not everybody gets that lucky or thinks that way. And so I think, I know we're trying to do a better job to get that information out there.
right.
Yeah, and that's if you don't treat someone's glycine level for a week, it's gonna be high when you when you do finally test it and find out that, oh, the glycine's high. And no kidding, you've been treating it for a week, so of course it's gonna be high. But to go back to the question about why different hospitals retest, so I think it's two things. One is obviously confirmation, because that's really important in this field. But two is what people don't realize is that different machines measure blood and labs at a different level. So what you get at one hospital may not transfer to another where they can understand it. So they need to pull it on their machine. So they got basically equivalent data, but on their measurement level. So that could be part of the reason why they did that too. But it's still pretty traumatic. I mean, doing a spinal tap twice, it's a lot. And thankfully for him, he probably didn't know about it because he was pretty unresponsive at the time. But that's
Yeah,
one
he
of
he was in a coma, I would say.
yeah, and that was
From
when we were doing was it start keto. I think they talked about doing a spinal tap, didn't they?
We discussed it. We've never had a repeat.
No, because I can't imagine how much harder that would be for like Nora now, because she is awake and she does know what's going on. And
Yeah.
for someone who knows it's coming, it's not pleasant. I can't imagine what it would be like for her. So,
yeah. Yeah.
um, so like you actually answered a lot of those questions that I first had for you whenever you got started. So I think another thing too is like the clear information at the time. So Did they provide you with any like, you know, Amanda got a folder with some Google documents in it and a flyer. Like, did you get anything at all from the hospital or nursing staff?
I got 2 pieces of paper stapled together, printed out from Google. And, it really only states what the word means, what non-ketotic hyperglycinemia means, and, prognosis, and then all the different kinds. And at that time, we didn't know if it was GLDC, we didn't know if it was we didn't know any of the nitty-gritty details, obviously, but there's not a lot of information on advocacy groups. I didn't get anything from NKH Crusaders, and not because we suck. I also, by the way, I am the director of marketing for NKH Crusaders. I love my job. We are working hard with Nora Jane Foundation and the other NKH nonprofits and community to create all of this information that we did not get whenever our kids were born. So,
Can you
um,
explain the GLDC and AMT so that people know? Because I'm sure there's people listening to this that have no idea what you just mentioned.
So there are 2 main forms of NKH. There are multiple variations, but the most common mutations you'll hear about are GLDC, which affects about 80% of our population, and the AMT mutation, which affects the other 20. Um, it's about as far as I know. I know that there are 2 different protein lines that each one of them affect, and yeah. Do you know anything more than me? The science really goes over my head sometimes.
Yeah.
And
I think it'd be important for us to like an episode where we actually just dive into that. And I know when they
yeah.
do our genetic testing, we got that information back, and you can see mine and Nora's dad had the GLDC um, mutation, and one matched Nora's, and the other one matched Nora's that he had. And it's interesting because yeah, when we got that, I'm like, "What GLDC? What the heck does that mean?" And AMT, and what is that? And there was like the deletions and the not and the whatever they call the missense and all of that. I'm like, I genetics 101. And they come and
Yes.
explain all this to you, and you're like, huh? Like, no, I'm a fifth
Yes.
grade math
About
teacher or
as
science teacher. I'm not that level.
well, and that's what I was gonna say. As I know about as much biology as you can get from, a high school biology class with the Punnett square. When they told me it was autosomal recessive, I was like, oh, I do know what that means. I know that means that, we had a 75% chance to never know what this is, and we still do.
Right.
So,
So if I
um,
remember right, because whenever they were talking about the chaperone therapy, the way it was explained to me was that the protein is deformed, and that's why it can't latch on the glycine and help break it down, and that the chaperone therapy, if it's created, would fix that problem and help that protein do its job. Now, I'm
it,
also not a chemist or biologist or a doctor, so I may have gotten that wrong, but I think that's kind of the the layman's explanation of it. It's obviously more complex than that because if it was that simple, it would already be fixed.
Right.
But that's kind of
right.
the way that it was explained to me, and I think I tried to get Kristen to talk about it, and hopefully, whenever we have her on, she'll dive into it deeper for us, either in this her first episode
Yeah.
with us or in the follow up one. But um, yeah, it's literally just a broken protein. I think is what it comes down to. So that's coming from a gene that's got some issues. So,
Right.
all right. So you
I'm
did
a
get,
very visual person, so I always picture it like there's like a line of enzymes that are going to break down the glycine, and there's just more glycine than there are enzymes, and so it breaks it down as much as it can, and then it just stops, and there's still too much glycine to, you know,
Right.
at
rid of
least
it.
Okay.
yeah, like Pac-Man. That's how yeah, I'm like, okay, well it's out now, and now we have all this glycine. So
Good to go.
So I'm gonna kind of take you back to when you found out that he had NKH. Like, how did that make you feel? Like, what was your emotional like what emotions were you feeling whenever that happened?
I mostly remember feeling like the wind was knocked out of me. Like, or, in a movie, whenever someone is like disassociating and everything goes quiet and in slow motion and you kind of feel like you're in a tunnel. That that was where I was at for at least 30 seconds until I realized that they were telling me that my baby was going to die and there was nothing that they could do. And I slammed my fist on the table and I told him that he wasn't going to die. And I walked out of the room. Um, and then, went and held him and cried a lot and, just thought about how everything that I had just imagined for 9 months was over and it wasn't going to happen that way. And just really began that grieving process, I guess grieving the life that you think you're going to have versus the reality. And that was a lot. It was a lot. It's it still is something that I obviously have a hard time talking about. I am very much a positive words girl and, sharing the highlights and being happy about the inch stones. So it's hard to, you know, bring up those feelings because it's a lot,
I like the
especially with your
understand.
first baby,
I like
especially, and not only that, you think you and at least for me, my immediately thought was, well, this is it. I can never have another kid. Like, if this is genetic and there's no way to naturally have a kid without a guarantee that we're not going to have another child with this horrible disease, then this is it for me. And um, that was a lot to wrap my head around, I guess.
Do you feel like you had a good support system, like, when you found out, like, with, the nursing staff and family and people there for you? Because, like, I know for me, I felt the same way where I just kinda, like, internalized a lot and you shut down, but you put on a happy face for everybody and you get in that I'm gonna fix everything mode, but you don't really let yourself grieve to people.
Yes, I had a lot of people who were ready to help me with Lucas, right? I had lots of family who was ready to step in and help take on some caregiving duties so that I could pump and sleep and, fold clothes and do laundry and cook and try to maintain some sort of normalcy. So that was great, having the support of the help. I think where I went wrong was not reaching out for more, emotional support or taking the steps to get the support that I really needed in those early days that maybe I thought I could power through. Um, and that came up later. It doesn't go away. You can't just push things down, by the way, and think they'll go away someday. You got to eventually deal with it. And I highly recommend doing it sooner than later.
Yeah, emotions have a nasty way of popping back up when you don't want them to.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah. And, um, I hear a lot in the community because I did it. Uh, it's almost like that first year we don't want to accept it. We don't want to get in the Facebook groups. We don't want to join the support groups. We don't want to identify as this person who we never imagined ourselves to be. And joining those joining the community kind of solidifies your title, and I held out. I joined the groups initially whenever he was in the NICU, and I started following or looking at Instagram profiles in the hospital, and it was all very overwhelming. It was a lot of obituaries and a lot of sadness and a lot of fear and all of these things that I felt like were going to bring me down even further, instead of realizing that talking to people who get it helps way more than you ever could imagine. So I would say I wish that I would have not pulled away. I wish that I would have got in the groups and made the connections that I have now and, reached out to you and Kristen. I mean, you were still in the trenches of it when Lucas was born. So, we kind of you would have been an amazing person for me to reach out to because your daughter was, I mean, she's just a few months older than him, maybe 1 full year,
Yeah.
but, um,
Teacher, that's
yeah, I wish, and they're so similar. I love seeing videos of her because I'm like, oh my goodness, that's my baby.
And there's a lot of good. You see all the like that negative stuff, but at the end of the day, like
Yes.
there's a lot of good and a lot of smiles and laughs. So it's not just
Yes.
bad things.
It's not all doom and gloom. It's not. And, you know, and it's not just about seeing the other kids thrive. It's about knowing that there's a mom out there who can relate to you because I struggle with that. I don't have any friends who are medically complex moms or even special needs moms. Um, I don't have anyone who can relate to me in that way other than the friends and the connections I've made through NKH. And, it's funny. I was thinking about this whenever I agreed to come on the podcast, but I remember being pregnant. I lived in a new city. I had, no friends there. And I was like, well, Lucas will come and he'll get in school and sports and I'll make all of my friends through Lucas. And I'm like, well, here I am. A lot of my friends and a lot of the people who I talk to every day, even though I don't see them in person, I met them through Lucas, through NKH. And I'm very, very thankful for that. So don't hesitate if you're newly diagnosed and you're seeing this. Get in the groups, reach out to us, send us emails. We'll respond. We'll make sure you get the resources you need and, you can talk.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's move on to daily life. Can you kind of walk us through a normal day for Lucas?
Yeah. So we start bright and early and we end late at night. He is on a every 6-hour sodium benzoate schedule. So we start at 7 o'clock in the morning with his first dose and feed. And we are pushing fluids and meds pretty much all morning. He gets all kinds of therapy. Right now, he's in speech therapy, learning how to use an iPad to say stop and go and more. And that's been a lot of fun. So we'll either go into therapy for an hour once a week or we do things at home with his switches. We do PT and OT, mostly to keep him limber, keep his bones as strong as we can keep him from, having too much pain or anything like that. And we hang out. We watch a lot of TV. Right now, we've been watching all of the Christmas movies that we love. And honestly, especially since he got his wheelchair, we've been getting out of the house more, and I've been enjoying that. We didn't get out of the house a lot his first few years. So I like to take him out to my parents' house. They have a nice big property, and in the summer, I'll take him on my dad's boat. He loves that so much. So we get out and we try to do as much as we can. He doesn't go to school. I'm not as brave as some of the other moms, so I just like to keep him at home with me. But we hang out and enjoy each other's company. And then he, goes and I think his last sodium benzoate is at 1 a.m. So we start at 7, we end at 1. Hopefully I have a nurse that comes in the morning. She comes in 3 to 4 times a week, which has been really, really helpful so that I'm not doing the 1 a.m. and the 7 a.m. all on my own. But
How does that work? Why do you only have a couple days a week?
So we only have one nurse, with Lucas being part-time at my house. We do week on, week off with his dad. So the nurse can only get a total of 40 hours a week
Okay.
with me, and she has to work it around another patient that she has. And because we're week on, week off, it's really hard to find another nurse who could do that schedule. She's actually related to me. So I don't think that I had such a hard time. I don't think I would have found somebody to agree to that weird every other week schedule if she wasn't related to me. Whenever, earlier this year when I was getting all of the nursing and everything set up, because I never had nursing until the split. So
Yeah, and how many years
I
have you gone without nursing?
7.
Yeah.
We went 7 years without nursing. Yeah, but I did have help in the home, which I'm very grateful for, but I was on night shift for 7 years. And, I stayed up until 5, 6 AM most nights, and, you know, that was it. And being on night shift is really hard on your body and your brain, so I don't recommend it. Get help. Get help.
Stressful life. I just think
Yeah.
it's hard to do anything, hang out with anybody when you're up all night and everyone else is sleeping.
Yeah. Well, and then, you gotta sleep some, so I wasn't waking up until 11, 12, sometimes 1 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on what time I finally got to go to sleep. And yeah, it's just not feasible. I do That's another thing. I wish that I would have gotten nursing help sooner. There's a lot of things, honestly, that I would change. His G tube, I wish that I would have gone through with his G tube surgery a lot sooner. I think that he could have been even better than he is now had he been nourished properly. Um, but yeah, so his nurse, she can only get 40 hours a week. He gets 56, but it's just so hard to find somebody who's willing to come every other week and, maybe not get a full-time spread on their paycheck. So
Could the nurse travel to the dad?
She does.
she could, but because she's related to me, it's,
Oh,
I guess conflict of interest, she said. And his dad seems set. I obviously they know all of the information for getting nursing and all of that, and maybe if they need it one day they can um sup, supply the hours for another nurse, and maybe it'll get better, but it's kind of up to him.
all right. What besides sodium benzoate, what else does he take?
Lou, for glycine reduction, he does the keto diet and sodium benzoate. I love the keto diet. He was able to cut his sodium benzoate dosage in half, which is great. Obviously, the diet still has its own issues and all of that, but it really woke him up, I think. I think that he became a lot more alert with the keto diet when we implemented that. And then he's on Keppra and Onfi for seizure control, and memantine, which is actually an Alzheimer's drug. And we started that in 2020 in place of dextromethorphan because he was very sleepy on dextromethorphan, and if we put him on it and took him off of it, we didn't really see much changes other than he would be a little bit more alert off of it, I guess. And his neurologist in Phoenix went to a conference, heard about Namenda or memantine, and wanted to put him on it, and we did, and we didn't really see any negative side effects, so he's been on it ever since. I don't know for sure if there have been any major benefits, only because we started keto diet basically at the exact same time. So I can't really for sure say which one it was. Um, but it's odd, I get a lot of looks at the pharmacy whenever I give his birthday, and then I'm picking up an Alzheimer's drug. Or
Yeah.
actually at a neuro appointment, the medical assistant was going through his meds and we got to it, and she said, "Oh, he takes that for his Alzheimer's."
Yeah, he's all timer.
Well, he's like 4, so no.
Is he still taking a lot of supplements? I know back in the day, you guys were doing a lot of trial and a lot of stuff.
We saw a naturopathic MD for a little bit, and yes, he was on a lot of supplements. They were all pre G-tube. So it became extremely difficult to give it to him whenever, we would crush him up, and it would be quite a bit of really terribly tasting powder to try to mix in food, or even put in a syringe to get him to take. And we kind of fell off, and it's extremely expensive. None of that. A naturopathic naturopathic MD, NMD, is not covered by insurance. The supplements aren't covered by insurance. So it was extremely expensive for the appointments, extremely expensive for the supplements. And I don't know how much of a difference it was really making. His labs are looking pretty much exactly the same as they were whenever he was on them. And some things, I think, from a caregiver point of view, you have to figure out how to make the care make most sense for your life. And if you're giving all of these supplements and you're not really seeing any changes or any positive outcomes from them, then it's just adding more things to your plate, right? And you're not really getting a different result. And I could be wrong. It could have been making a huge difference and I just didn't know it, I guess. I think about that sometimes, like, well, what if his immune system was just like doing so great, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree with you that keto makes a difference. And I know that I've been on, the different forms and stuff like that, and some people don't really like keto, but like for us, I've noticed that when she does get sick, it's not as bad. She was more awake now that she's on keto. As a matter of fact, last week was probably the worst she's been sick
For a while.
for a long time since she started keto, and it still wasn't as bad as when she wasn't on keto. So I do think it makes a big difference. And then having the G tube also makes a big difference because it's so much easier to manage it. And then obviously giving medications like, that first conference, the only conference I've been to, but like listen to those kids talk like about how bad the medication tastes. I can't imagine what was it for Lucas to try and take that stuff that you mentioned, like this tastes terrible.
Well, and didn't you
So
mention that it had messed up his teeth?
Yeah, sodium benzoate made his teeth like you could see through them. They were clear almost. Like very, worn down. He grinds his teeth. I don't know if Nora does, but he already grinds them. But the sodium benzoate, they were almost translucent. And yeah, I do think that getting him a G tube much earlier would have been that. If I could go back and do anything different at all, that's what I would do. I would get him a G tube much, much sooner. He did okay eating by mouth for his first year. I have pictures of him when he's 8 months old. He's a little chunker, and he ate everything by mouth, but he just got to a point where he didn't have enough energy to eat the amount of food that he needed to eat to grow and have enough energy to eat and play and have seizures, and deal with all of the other things that his body was going on. He just didn't have the strength to do it. And I do think that, I try not to blame myself. I think that I think for me, seeing him do things that those doctors assured me he would never do almost kind of put this like pride badge on me that I was like, well, my kid's not going to have a G-tube because he's eating by mouth and they don't know what they're talking about. And it's very easy to get in that mode, I think, when you are given such devastating news. But if I could go back and change it, I would. I'd get him one at 18 months old and, push all of those supplements and do all of those things. And it not only would have made his life better and easier, but it would have made his caregivers' lives easier as well. Our entire days were spent trying to get him to eat. So, you don't get therapy, you don't get any meaningful quality of time if you're just trying to force feed a kid all day long.
Right.
Yeah, especially if he doesn't want to eat, he's not going to.
Especially if he doesn't want to eat. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that kind of goes into like the communication part of it. So you said that he's learning how to use a tablet. How's that going so far?
Yeah. So he got introduced to Switch toys pretty young. So he knows the cause and effect of a Switch. And we started AAC device training with buttons. And that was very, very difficult because you have to scroll with one button and then select with another. And his speech therapist here in Oklahoma, since we've now relocated, decided to try with an iPad. And it's pretty much instant gratification, right? He can see the picture, he can tap it on the screen, and then it says the word, and he's actually pretty good at it. At least I think so. And it's so hard. I don't know if y'all deal with this with Nora, but intention versus accident, like,
Yeah.
did he mean to press that? But there are some times when I know that he was telling you to stop.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't want you reading that book about the bunnies. He wants the book about the truck, you know? And it's been really exciting. It's fun to go and see him. He gets excited whenever we show up at the therapy clinic. He knows that we're going to play and he gets to experience, the iPad, and it's fun. It is. So hopefully we get ours soon. I think she put in a request for it. So hopefully insurance approves it and we can have one for the house.
I love that. Well, if they don't approve it, reach out to me because our speech therapist has done some amazing things with getting support and that kind of stuff. So we have one for school now
Okay.
and we have one for home. So
Nice.
Nora's been a little sick,
Nice.
so we haven't been able to use it much, but it's really cool.
Is hers an iPad with where that she can tap on the screen?
Yes. And then they gave us a couple apps that I'll have to send you the one because it activates a picture and it starts moving. And she really likes that one. And then they do the cause and effect buttons as well. So
Yeah.
I haven't
Awesome.
gotten to witness her use it yet, so I'm looking forward to watching her do that. I've been on midnights for the last month and a half, which is
Oh,
not
yeah.
fun. So, does he communicate besides the touching with the screen?
No, I mean, obviously, as his mom, I understand him more than most people, but obviously, there's still plenty of times when he's agitated or upset, and I have no idea why. It's just a shot in the dark, and I've got to do all of the things that I know could potentially make him feel better. And sometimes none of those things work. And, he's just in a state of dystonia and agitated and doesn't feel good. And I'm sure that that has a lot to do with having NKH. And there's just nothing I can do about it. There's not enough Tylenol or, repositioning or sounds from YouTube that are going to make it go away. So I usually will just kind of let him waller it out is what I call it, let him get all of his movements out and do what he's got to do.
Yeah, so he's not a Metallica fan like
I was
Nora?
going to say, try Metallica, it comes her down, and then we can take the
He
two of them to their first heavy metal concert.
he does really like rock music though.
I love
I don't know. I'll try Metallica. I haven't tried Metallica yet, but he does really like rock music.
It's almost instantaneous for her. Like, I'll put on any other music and she will still be fussy, but I put on Metallica and she almost instantly is like, "Oh, this is my jam."
Nice.
So,
Nice.
and her other thing is me picking her up and holding her.
Oh yeah,
Like,
we know when Stevie G picks her up, she's just like, melts.
yeah. So, but yeah, we're like with you is like some days it's obvious what's wrong, and then other days there's nothing we can figure out. Like, is it belly
Yeah.
pain? Is it muscle aches? Is it joint pain? Like, we just don't know. So it's like, do you give her Tylenol? Do you give her ibuprofen? Like, what do you do? And
Yeah.
sometimes they're just gassy, so it's just hard to tell.
Yeah.
Let me see where we're at here real quick. So this is kind of maybe more emotional stuff, but how has this changed you as a mother and a person?
Yeah. It's hard for me to talk about how it changed me as a mother because I
I think
I
that's
guess I
enough.
refer to myself as caregiver more than parent in a way. Yes, I'm obviously a parent by biology, sure. But I'm not teaching Lucas right from wrong. I'm not teaching him how to drive or any of that. So as a person, I never in my life expected to be a rare disease advocate or a caregiver. So it it changed my perspective a lot on something that I had no knowledge of. I knew that rare disease and special needs things existed, but I didn't understand the scope of what people like us have to go through and what being part of an orphan disease community really entails. And I am grateful, even though it's crazy to say, I am grateful that this is my path. If this was going to be my path, I'm grateful that it's with the people who it's with, and it's NKH, and I kind of know it, and I'm not as intimidated anymore these days. I'm ready to get the standard of care together. I'm ready to get our kids a better treatment, and I'm happy to be here, but I was supposed to just be some boring lady with, PTA and T-ball and not go on podcasts talking about rare disease. So it definitely changed me as a person, I think, for the better. As hard as it's been, it's definitely made me a better person. And maybe if I do have kids in the future, somehow I do think it will make me a better parent. It will make me more compassionate and, more patient, I think. So, as bad as it's been, it's made me a better person for sure.
Yeah, patience is like, it's a key trait for sure, because it's,
Yeah,
again, it goes back to, it's like you don't have a choice. So
right. I was gonna say, I think whenever you're a parent and a caregiver, you don't have the option to lose your patience. That's not something that we're afforded, and that's okay. That's just the path that we were given.
yeah,
But
there is one thing I will say. So there was a time before we start keto that Nora was really struggling for several days, and we talked about, was it neurostorming?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, it was so bad where it's like you had to lay her in her playpen and then just go to the other room
yeah,
and like decouple for a little bit and then come back, because it's just, it can be very overwhelming. And I think new parents need to understand that. Like, one, it's okay. Like, it's emotional, it's stressful, it's difficult.
yeah,
But you got to recognize it right away. And it's okay to set your child down in a safe place and then go to another room and just like
Yell it out.
yell, yeah, like let it out, whichever way you
yes,
can do that safely without harming your child, because that's the goal, is to take care of them and then come back, and maybe getting rid of some of that stressor that will help you do that. So, and that's why it's also important when to have people in your life that can step in and help out, or
take
maybe,
that. Yes,
yeah, take that burden, maybe send you off, or go get yourself a coffee or a sandwich, or walk walk in the park,
yes,
or case.
Yes.
So, I will tell you something that I've seen change in at least our part of the community in the last year, is that um, I think we're more assertive as a community than I think when I first came in and I saw you guys. Because initially, like, it's thank God we've got researchers, thank this, thank that. And now it's like, hey, listen, we're going to now, I don't want to say like push our weight around, but at the end of the day, it's like we're the ones doing the work and getting the money and doing this stuff. And we want you to be accountable to that. And I think that's
yeah,
been a mentality change, I think, at least within the group that we've worked in this area. So, which is a good thing in my mind, because without that, it's kind of like, you know, researchers do what researchers are going to do, right? But we want direction, and I think that's a big change for us. So,
absolutely. We started getting more involved right around COVID times, when we kind of all had to quit doing anything in person and do all of our fundraising online, and just the sheer amount of growth that's happened within the community in 5 short years that I've seen is immense. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for where it's headed and what outcomes that we're going to get for our kids and, the kids who aren't born yet, who inevitably will be. And it's going to be good.
Yes,
We're going to have a
absolutely.
standard of care if it's the last thing I do.
Yeah, no, that's 100% like on the very close to the top of the list of standard of care.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
you ever answer this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Like, obviously, you felt some isolation, um, and then you mentioned early that you wish sooner that you'd reached out to the community. But can you kind of like maybe go more into that today, like the support you have, where you go specifically if you have questions, or what do you do? Are you doing anything specific to help support other families that are coming into the NKH community?
Yeah. I usually go to Kristen. Still going to Kristen. Bless her heart. She's like, don't you know there's so many other people you can go to? No. Yeah, I am always in the group asking questions, uh, or reading, doing as much reading as I can, making sure that nobody else has asked my question before. Um, I, being part of NKH Crusaders and I guess just being considered, somewhat of a leader in the community, I definitely keep myself open for people to reach out or I try to make it a point to reach out to people whenever I either see them struggling or know that they're new to the community or, know that maybe they're dealing with something that we've dealt with before. But I'm sure as you can tell, I don't like to get into myself too much. So I'm not always the first to go and ask for help. And I do need to be better than that. I need to be better about showing up for our twice monthly support group, but I don't like to talk about myself.
It's
But
great from day one, though. I've come to you several times with keto questions, with medication questions, our sodium benzoate issues, which we can get into that next, and how you do that all yourself. And I noticed at the last conference that we had, I mean, you sat in the back room with one of the moms because she was struggling with some medication things. And you were like, I think it's this. You need to talk to your doctor. And it was amazing to witness that because I feel like you've always been like that. And you're good about not being pushy, but saying, hey, I went through this. I know what to do. This is what you need to do. And it helped. I mean, I remember she contacted you back and said, you were right. I did this. I contacted the doctor and that's what it was. And I don't know, give yourself a little more credit, girl.
I appreciate it. And yeah, I do love helping people. I really do. I love being the helper and not the helpee. So I do struggle with getting support for myself and asking questions for myself and I don't know where that stems from. That's not what this is all about. But yeah, I really enjoy I enjoy my position as, marketing communications for this community essentially and making sure that everyone has access to the resources they need or just somebody to talk to who knows what it's like because I just assume that everyone's like me, right? And they also don't want to ask for help. So I try to offer my help whenever I can. So I yeah, I have definitely found a supportive community though. Definitely.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
that's a good thing. And hopefully our podcasts reach other people who haven't found that yet, and they can use this as a channel to get to those support groups. So,
Absolutely.
so Amanda kind of touched on it, and I was kind of excited to hear you talk about this. But so sodium benzoate, is a preservative. It's not a medication. So obviously, not all states are the same when it comes to paying for sodium benzoate. We're fortunate that Missouri does that. Our only struggle is honestly getting it on time, and I think we've kind of solved that problem a little bit, but not 100%. But it's definitely different for you, right? Like it's not.
Yeah. So um whenever we left the NICU at Phoenix Children's, they brought a pharmacist into his NICU room, showed us how to measure out his sodium benzoate powder, how much water to mix with it, and all of that to essentially compound his medication at home by ourselves. And we thought that was normal and the only way that it was done. And so we were like, okay, this is what we're doing. And then quickly, we realized that Medicaid wasn't going to cover it because it's not FDA approved. It's not even technically a medicine, even though it is used experimentally for more than just NKH, actually. But that also his dose was going to be changing, especially in those early days. You know, that first year and a half, they're just rapidly growing. And so when you're taking a medication that is fully based on how much you weigh, it's going to be changing a lot. So we started struggling getting it on time from the pharmacy, getting enough from the pharmacy, having to call the doctor, say, okay, well, he's gained 3 kilos. We need a new prescription for, you know, however many milligrams per kilogram per day now that he's gained weight. So it was just a nightmare. We actually decided that we were just going to buy it in bulk, and we started buying a kilo at a time from it is a scientific company. They were actually at the World Orphan Drug Congress, so we started buying it in a big jug, and we would weigh him every week, weigh out how much sodium benzoate he needed, batch it up, and we've always been doing it ourselves. I actually made an iPhone shortcut. If you have an iPhone, you can use it to figure out your sodium benzoate calculations per your kid. But I really thought that the whole compounding situation was the norm until, you know, a year in, and I start talking to other parents, and they're getting it from their pharmacy and their insurance is covering it because Arizona didn't cover it. Oklahoma doesn't cover it. I don't, there are several states that don't. So you all are pretty fortunate that they at least cover it. And does y'all's come compounded already, or is it a powder?
Yeah, we've gotten it compounded since we left the hospital too. They were making it at St. Louis Children's, and then we quickly moved to a local pharmacy that's a lot closer. And I remember when I went in to talk to the pharmacist and I gave him our script of everything we needed, he was like, "Why is she taking so much of this?" It was that and the dextromethorphan. Like it was an alarmingly high thing. And I showed him the diagnosis, and he was like, "This is interesting."
Yeah.
But even then, we were paying, I think, like $60,
Oh,
I think, a month for the Dex and the sodium benzoate. And then there was one day my mom was in town watching the girls, and she went to pick up the medication. And when they told her the fee, my mom was like, "Did you run that through both insurances?" Because then at that time, we ended up getting, we qualified for the Medicaid waiver. So they ran it through my insurance and then that. And they were like, "Oh, no cost." And my mom was like, "How long have you guys been doing this and charging them?" So we'd been
yeah.
paying forever. And now it's completely covered, but we ended up going back to the hospital and they're shipping it to us. Yeah, they compound it. For a while they were flavoring it, and I was like, "She doesn't take it by mouth. We don't need to do that." And then now with keto, we can't do that anyway. But yeah, when you told me you guys did that, I was like, gosh, she's mom, caretaker, therapist, pharmacist.
Well, and what's funny too is our pharmacy told us that they couldn't batch it out because it would go bad in 7 days.
Well, no, ours was 14 days,
Yeah,
right?
ours was 14,
And
but
now
then
children's is like a month.
Children's gives us a month. Yeah.
But so if you think about what sodium benzoate is,
Yeah, the preservative.
it,
That's not supposed to go
but
bad.
we got to see Van Ho for the first time in April of 19, and we asked him about that. We said, well, the pharmacy told us that we have to compound it ourselves every day or every so many days because it goes bad in a week. And he said, it's one of the most powerful preservatives ever. It's not going to go bad. And I was like, oh. And, you know, I still don't fully like if it breaks down. And he said having a week at a time was fine. So that's kind of the rule that I follow. I just make enough for a week. Obviously 30 days is fine. I imagine, you know, and this is kind of a sidebar, but if you've ever left a milk bottle in your diaper bag and it's gone bad, you know, you got to throw that thing away. I remember it was actually breast milk in a bottle, got left in the diaper bag, but his sodium benzoate had been in it because we put it in his milk and he drank it when he was a baby. And that bottle had been in that diaper bag for I don't know how long. And whenever I took it out, it smelled exactly like breast milk. It did not
That's
it did not
crazy.
change.
That's crazy. Hey, we should
Yeah.
market this. We could say breast milk for life. That's crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
so I always thought like we were having problems with the 14-day supply. Like, they would only give us enough for the day you get it and the day that stops, but they wouldn't give us more. And then we couldn't get it that last day because the insurance was like, well, they're not paying for it. So like it was a real difficult issue. And I remember at the conference, the orphan drug conference, I went to several pharmacies that were there and I asked them about it, and none of them compounded. And then I started listening to some other podcasts, and there was a compound pharmacist was talking about how the industry is forcing them out. Um, the pharmaceutical industry is forcing compounders out because it's competition for the large pharmaceutical companies, which is very concerning because you can't buy sodium benzoate in that any other way besides as a compound, or you
Right,
have it
right.
compounded. So it's like, well, is it at the end of the day where I start buying this from a food grade, chemical company? It's
Giving them ketchup, barbecue sauce all day long.
yeah, with with sodium benzoate in it. I'm sure they love that. But it's like it's kind of terrifying that that's the direction it's going, and there's like you have to get this as a compounded medication. So, but you also found a solution is you just buy it in bulk and compound it yourself. So,
Well, and I know I let Lucas's dad handle all of that. I think that he had to have an EIN number, but his family owns a company that sells like lotions and products that could potentially have a preservative like sodium benzoate in it. So I think that's how he was able to do it or is able to do it. So I'm not advocating for people to go and purchase their own in bulk, but that was an option for us and something that we were able to do. But last I heard, they have changed it. So even the company that he was buying it from, now he has to buy like 6 kilos at a time, not just one. And the cost is significantly increased. So, and I could be wrong, I don't know. I just know that something changed and the price went up, the amount we had to get went up. And so I could see, if compound pharmacies aren't able to do their job. I mean, we can't be the only rare disease that has some obscure treatment
Medication.
that isn't FDA approved, that, you know, isn't covered by insurance, has to be compounded. There's so many factors.
We were dealing with that with the dextromethorphan, and we finally weaned her off of that. But when we switched to keto, we were getting it from Amazon, and we were buying the little bottles of dextromethorphan, and then it was just gone. We couldn't find it on there. He found some on some random
I was buying it from India.
yeah, from India, and it looked legit, hopefully. But I ended up asking her keto team, I'm like, what are we going to do? Because we can't find it anywhere. And they couldn't make it anymore. They couldn't make it keto friendly, which I don't understand that, but whatever. And it got to the point where we were like, is it even worth giving anymore? Is it really doing anything for her? We haven't noticed a difference since she's been off of it. But that's the frustration, is like, it's already rare. We get these weird medications that we don't even know if they work because there's no treatment
Right.
out there. And then we can't even get the medications we need to get. So it's fun.
Well, and NKH medications, as of now, as they stand, which is dextromethorphan and sodium benzoate, I guess dextromethorphan, I don't know if they're still recommending it, but they're not covered.
Right.
That's not because they're not FDA approved, because you can't pull up this treats non-ketotic hyperglycinemia on whatever computer system they're using. It's never going to be covered. His memantine's not. His memantine is an off-label prescription, so it's not covered, which just blows my mind that I guess is the standard, for them to cover it, because what if we didn't have the means to give him sodium benzoate? What if we weren't able to buy it?
Right.
What if we had no other option and
And we've
Yeah.
heard from several families in our groups that newly diagnosed that those hospitals don't even recommend it. They're like, oh, well, we don't think it works. And it's like, I mean, part of me thinks like, can you blame them? Like there's no true
Right.
path. We're just going off of what's the research from years
Right.
and years ago. So it's scary.
Right. Well, and they see the word experimental and they don't see any trials, and they don't doctors aren't going to log on to Facebook and type in NKH and find our groups and find our kids and see them somewhat thriving. I think that the medical community has a very sterile view on quality of life, but I think that there are some parents who maybe get the same story we got, which is there's no point in treating, there's no point in doing therapy, there's no point in all of these things because they're just going to die anyways. And I think that they find us after the fact, after they decide not to treat, and they're confused and hurt and, wondering why they didn't get the same option because their care team or their hospital team told them there was no point when maybe there was.
Right.
So, standard of care.
One thing we're going to fix.
Yes. All right. So, hardest moment that you faced so far?
Just one.
Just one.
um,
You can do it, Chancey. I know you can.
yeah, I would say figuring out my new normal on my own. Figuring out how to do this on my own. I had, a whole lot of in-house support for the first 7 years, and I haven't for the past year, and I did it. And it was hard, but I made myself really proud,
You're
and
amazing.
it really built my confidence up. So, as hard as it's been, I'm grateful for it. So,
Well, you're doing a
sorry.
fantastic job. Don't anybody tell you different.
Lucas has the best mama.
Yes, I do think that I was the best choice for him to be his mom, and I am definitely okay saying that. So,
Well, so then tell us what's the maybe most unexpectedly beautiful or joyful moment you've had with him.
getting to know him by myself, I think, having the confidence to get him out of the house and go and do things and, get him on the boat and take him to the cabin with my family for Christmas. We've done that for 2 Christmases in a row, and it's hard and it's a lot of work, but I'm always so happy that I brought him along and, got to experience those things with him. Um, Him learning how to use this iPad is just blowing me away because, like I said, I really think that he's being intentional, and I'm gonna keep believing that because he's doing really good.
I can tell you right
Uh,
now, he definitely is. So here's like the boat thing. Like I had no idea that Nora would love to be on a boat until we put her on a boat. Like we took her out and we did something with her and she loved it. She's a social
yep,
butterfly. She loves getting out of the house and going and being with other people. Like it's
yeah,
amazing. And I'm really looking forward to see how she progresses with the iPad because again, it goes back to the doctor said, oh, they'll never do these things. Well, guess what? Not only are they doing them, but they're thriving in these areas. So yeah,
yeah,
they're not your typical child, but they're making progress and they're interacting and social and happy, and they're doing all those things. That's of all the messages that I want people to hear, like that's the biggest one is like, don't let them box you in. Don't let them box your kid in because you don't know. And Amanda said it best is let your kid show you what they can do.
right,
Don't let somebody else tell you what they can't do. So
right,
And I'm proud of you, Chancey, because, I was kind of in your boat a few years ago and it is hard. It's hard when you have a whole support team with you, but it's even harder when you're by yourself. I haven't seen your muscles lately, but we're not big, strong girls. And, it was always the thought of me taking Nora out in public by myself and lifting the wheelchair and forgetting, not forgetting all of her meds and all of the things. And the people staring at you and the questions that you get. And it was just like, oh, it's just easier to stay home in my bubble. Nobody will know. I'm fine here. But I had to get over that. And he did a great job pushing me to make those experiences for Nora. It's not about my feelings, and it's about making that beautiful life for her. So I'm proud of
Yeah.
you, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, um, not to get too emotional, but I think you gave me a lot of confidence. I was like, well, at least I won't be the only one who's gone through this. So this is what I need to do for myself and for Lucas, because I needed to be the best version of me in order to make sure that he has the best life while I have him. And so I did think about you. It's like, well, I'll have someone to talk to, that's for sure.
Yep.
So, yeah, he really does surprise me just about every day. I really can't say enough great things about him. He has been saying mom a lot, I think, especially if he's sad or upset, which is sad, but
I'll take
hearing him yeah, I'll take it. Like, if that's the only time you wanna say it, that's fine, and it's those little things, it's not too much. Sometimes it's just whenever I pick him up and he squeezes his arms around my neck, whether he meant to or not, it feels like a hug and it feels great. And, I wrote in my journal the first time I ever felt like he really gave me a hug, because I think it was like a year and a half ago. And every time something like that happens, it's just another thing to be grateful for, another reason not to let it bring you down, because this life can bring you down pretty far.
Absolutely.
I think Nora says mom too.
I'm glad other people
So,
hear it, because it's not just me.
yeah, I've heard her say it. I'm like, did she just say mom?
And it's usually when she's complaining. It's more of like, Mom. I'm like, I'll say,
Yeah,
you want me?
I'll
Yes.
take. We
All
have
right.
got to get together. They're the same. I know it.
Totally.
They will probably kick the crap out of each other, but it will be hilarious.
Yeah, they'll love it. They'll love it.
All right. So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I think this part is pretty important too. So this is more advice and messages that you want to give to others. But if you could go back, is there anything you wish known earlier? So I know you mentioned earlier about the G2, but is there anything else that you wish you'd known sooner with Lucas?
Definitely diet. I don't think that the keto diet was something that anyone was doing yet whenever he was born, but I am a very big advocate for the younger you get started on keto, the better. I think that it works way better than sodium benzoate on its own. Obviously, they work great together, and you can't really do keto without a little bit of sodium benzoate, but Lucas wasn't able to lay flat his first year because of all of the acid reflux and everything from the sodium benzoate, and the trauma on his teeth and all of that from taking so much. So keto diet, get the G tube. Even if your kid can eat by mouth, get the G tube for meds. Because the meds alone, even the seizure meds, there's so much.
It's a
The
lot.
G-tube the G-tube is your friend. It's not a setback. It's not a defeat. It is definitely worth it.
And as
I
far as
think.
keto goes, in the hospital, not at home.
Keto in the hospital, not at home. Do not do that at home. Do not do it on your own. You need professional advice, and go to the hospital.
Yes, it was terrifying in the hospital the first few days. I can't imagine what it was like for you to do it at home. Like that
Oh yeah,
had
we
been
didn't even.
rough.
But yes, do not start keto on your own. It is not the same as the keto diet to lose weight that goes around online. It is not the same at all.
10 out of 10 do not recommend.
10 out of 10 do not recommend. Do not do it yourself. Go to the keto clinic.
Yes.
But you can now ask the two of us for advice, because I know I went to you, and that's one of the things you said to me. You were smart.
Yes.
You went to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't give up on it. It
No,
really does make a huge
don't give up on
difference.
Don't give up. Yeah. it's hard and it's a lot. It's a lot of math. It's a lot of being extremely accurate with, recipes and concoctions and things like that, but it's totally worth it. And yeah, do it.
Yeah. And I'll say from our point is because we have the pre-made formula that we get from
through insurance.
through
Yeah.
insurance, and which makes it 10 times easier because now we just weigh it out and we know that
Yeah.
we weigh this much of the food, we weigh this much of the oil, and that's what she gets. Like it's not real complex for us because the hospital did that for us. So if
Yeah.
you can do that, that's what I would recommend doing.
Yeah. That's what we do. We get a keto formula that's a little bit higher than his ratio, and then we balance it down to his ratio. It's a 4-to-1, and then we make it a 3.25-to-1 with water and honey and oil by weighing it out. And he's able to get more calories but less volume because I don't know about Nora, but he's a puker. So
Oh yeah,
he
no one
doesn't.
can do.
Yeah.
Projectile.
Well, that was the other day. They said, "Well, she needs more water." I'm like, "Are you going to give it to her because she won't take it?
Can't handle it
She can't
anymore.
handle that much."
I was actually going to ask you that. How much free water does she drink or take?
So they want us to do with each feeding, they want us to do 300 mils
There's no way though.
and then an additional 16 ounces just throughout the day, like with med pushes and other things. Like we try. I mean, the food ones are easy.
Yeah.
And then I try to mix in the meds that we can mix in with the water. I try to do that. But then that free water during the day is what's killing us sometimes because she just like, you can hear it. She's like, I can't do anymore. Poor little belly.
Yeah.
I only give her 250 at her meals because I've watched too many times where she gets towards the end of her feeding and she's puking because it's just too much and her body just can't absorb it that fast.
Yeah. Yeah, we deal with that. We shoot for 1,000 mils extra of free water a day. And if he's sick, I try to bump it up by 500, and it's so hard to get that much water in. And, um, we thankfully have a new activity chair coming. So I'm hoping that we can get him sitting upright more for his feeds and not just in like his little lounger thing. Because he can almost move too much and then cause himself to throw up. So
Yeah, and when she's sick, it's way worse. We notice too. Like it's probably half that, and she's puking.
All
So
that mucus and everything was building up last week. So it was trying to cough that up and then too much water. It was not the fun mix.
yeah. I do have a little bit of advice for newly diagnosed families, and that's just that the first 2 years are really, 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 really hard. Really hard. In and out of the hospital for respiratory sickness, figuring out seizure routines, figuring out sickness routines. It changes every single time you get used to a new routine. It changes, and those first 2 years are hard. But as soon as Lucas started getting bigger, things started getting easier. And, we've been to the hospital twice in the past 2 years. And it was the last time it was 2 nights. The time before that, it was 1 night. So, it has gotten progressively easier as far as hospital stays, and illness is able to be managed at home. They tend to, get better a little bit quicker, at least in my experience, when they're bigger. But the first 2 years are really, really hard. So if you can just push through, there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. All of our kids are so different, but I've just noticed a trend where it seems like they're so sick those first 2 years. And I tell everyone there is a little bit of hope. It will get a little bit better.
well, their bodies are growing and maturing, and their systems are getting more sophisticated, so they're getting better at fighting things off, right? So
We're finally figuring it out as parents. So
as parents, and we start to see the signs sooner and get better about intervening sooner and doing the things that we can do to hopefully keep them at home. So, we have a lot of sickness right now and a lot of hospital stays right now. So it gets better.
So before we end this, is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't maybe covered? that you think is really important to share, maybe helpful to parents or just part of your story?
Yeah, I wanted to just reiterate something that y'all talked about in Amanda's episode about, advocating for your kid. Whenever you know something isn't right, uh, speak up and be forceful. Don't don't let them, I guess, decide for you, you know? You get to make the decision. You get to decide what how your kid should be treated and provided for medically. And, you know, if you don't like a doctor, you can fire him and go find a new one.
Yep.
So, so speak up and speak often. Ask questions even if you think they're silly, because there's never such thing as too much information, especially with a rare disease.
Yes. And reach out to us. Like, if you're not getting the answers you need,
Yes.
please reach out to any one of us. We will be more than happy to guide you. Hopefully,
Absolutely.
and we won't choose your direction, but we'll try to guide you as best we can. So,
Right.
all right. Well, Chancey, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope you don't have to edit me too much.
Oh no, this will be fun, and hopefully we'll get to have you on again soon. I'm hoping that Kristen lets me do some of this at the conference. I think it'd be kind of cool
Oh,
to talk to parents there and get their perspectives. So,
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Well, thank you all for having me and thank you for doing this. I'm excited to see it.
yes, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.